2010 was a pretty interesting year for video games. We had Red Dead Redemption, Mass Effect 2, Super Mario Galaxy 2, and David Cage's Misery Game in the Rain. But an entry that completely fell under my radar at the time was also one that, had I known about, would have easily topped my best of list for that year, if not all time. I'm talking, of course, about NieR. Hey, I'm Mike and welcome to the Lions Lounge. Now, if it was 2017 and you'd heard about this cool futuristic action game called NieR Automata, you'd be forgiven for not knowing this was actually a sequel. Automata itself does reference the original NieR, but you don't need to know what happens to still enjoy it. Hell, before I'd ever started playing it, I knew it was a sequel, and still wrote off the original because I'd heard the gameplay was shoddy and it was a bit of a slog. Plus, I didn't want to have to break out my old PS3. And if you're like the old me and also think this, I'm here to tell you you're not wrong. But, despite this, is NieR still worth playing? Well, I'm here in the hopes of convincing you that it is, and why I think it stands apart from its sequel as a fantastic game unto itself. As mentioned, NieR is on the PS3 and the Xbox 360, and in fact there are actually two versions of the game, NieR Replicant and NieR Gestalt. Replicant was available in Japan and featured a teenage NieR, whereas the West got Gestalt, where you play as older NieR. The main story, gameplay, and really everything else between the games is exactly the same. The only difference is NieR's relationship to Yona, who in Replicant is NieR's younger sister, and Gestalt his daughter. And it's interesting to see how these two approaches are handled, as certain scenes can hit differently based on this. As I'm American, I've only played Gestalt, but I'm happy to tell you if you do want to wait to play this game, there is an enhanced remaster of Replicant coming to PS4 and Xbox One next April. The main plot of NieR is set hundreds of years in the future, where humanity is nearly extinct from a strange virus called the Black Scrawl, as well as vicious creatures known as Shades. The main character, NieR, is journeying across this desolate world in the hopes of finding a cure for Yona, who has contracted the Black Scrawl herself. It's upon entering some ruins that NieR comes into contact with sardonic living magical book, Grimoire Weiss, who not only grants NieR powers, but is also a book of legend said to be destined to battle his counterpart, Grimoire Noir, and use sealed verses to save the world. NieR believes this can also save Yona, and decides to team up with Weiss. And along the way, they are joined by the shy and polite young boy Emil, and the foul-mouthed and brash Kaine. Both have their own tragic pasts, and are striving to move on despite this. Emil being a living weapon with the power to wipe out mankind, and Kaine having fused with the Shade in hopes of taking revenge on another Shade that killed her grandmother. And this is where I think NieR really shines, its story and characters. Don't get me wrong, the combat is not terrible, but I'd be lying if I said it was as good as its sequel. Though, from what I've seen of the remaster, they're making huge strides to modernize it. But as this is a Yoko Taro game, expect curveballs that will hit you hard. You can't help but come to love these characters, particularly Emil and Kaine, the latter of whom is quite possibly one of my favorite video game characters. Without going into spoilers, the way that Taro balances their personalities, not just with NieR, but with each other, is incredible. Like how Kaine has formed a sort of older sister bond with Emil and clearly cares for him, or how Emil is terrified to lose Kaine and have to spend his nights alone. There's such a huge weight they all carry, and you can feel it. And the music does an incredible job of selling this. Like, goddamn, the music of NieR is fantastic. While not as varied as Automata, it's still so beautiful, with my favorites being Song of the Ancients and Kaine Salvation. Seriously, go listen to this soundtrack and go play NieR. Throughout the game, there are constant references and mentions of a legendary flower called a Lunar Tear. Aside from being incredibly difficult to cultivate, it's also rumored to grant a wish to whoever finds it, Yona herself believing it could cure her illness. NieR even makes a huge effort to grow Lunar Tears and gives one as a gift to Kaine during a certain part of the game. And the Lunar Tear is what I've decided to base today's cocktail on. So this is going to be kind of a coconut tropical cocktail that's just a little boozy but extremely drinkable. I played around with this formula back and forth until I eventually settled on this, and overall I'm pretty satisfied with it. So for this drink, you're going to want to break out your blender. First, you're going to want 1 ounce or 30 milliliters of lime juice. Then 3 ounces or 90 milliliters of cream of coconut. I'm using Coco Lopez. Next, 2 ounces or 60 milliliters of a Blanco Tequila. And lastly, 1 ounce or 30 milliliters of Grand Marnier or triple sec. Add some ice and blend for about 15 seconds. Then you can just open pour this into a hurricane glass. And for garnish, I have this little fake flower here. And then just add a straw. In this case, I'm gonna use a blue one just because whenever I think of the Lunar Tear, I think of Kaine, and her color scheme is white and blue. And there you have the Lunar Tear. Cheers. Ooh. Okay, so you wanna be very careful how much cream of coconut you put in this because it can easily overpower the rest of the drink. In this case, 3 ounces is the perfect amount. You get that coconut, but then you still taste the tartness from the lime juice and the sweetness from that Grand Marnier. And then on the back end, you get those agave notes from the tequila. This is a really delicious drink, especially on a hot day. It's November here in New Jersey, but it's like 74 degrees out, so this is perfect. Oh, yeah, this is really good. We made the Lunar Tear from NieR. It's a great game. Highly recommend you play it. If you don't want to get it on PS3, just wait for the remaster to come out in April. It's a fantastic game, I promise you. If you like this video and want to see more, please like and subscribe. If you have any cocktails you'd like me to make based on any games or series, let me know in the comments below. If you want to see what I make outside this channel, follow me on Twitter at Mr. Spacelion or Instagram at Mr.Spacelion. Thank you so much for stopping by the Lions Lounge. I'm Mike. Hope to see you next time.